So tell me about the blacklist again. Yeah, just tell me all the best stuff. You know exactly what do they want to know if they are writers and they want to get their
blacklist
stuff.
is great to read and check out what scripts are on there and what sorts of scripts are making it on there, just because the blacklist is a list of the most liked unproduced screenplays in Hollywood based on the votes of about 300 current executives. And so
From like the different studios.
Different production companies, yeah. And so that has been a great way that has sort of slightly changed Hollywood in that people are more likely to fund those scripts because they've had a track record of doing really well or being really good. And since then, the people who run the blacklist and who run that list every year have created a way to help screenwriters who may not have representation yet, because most of the scripts on the blacklist are already set up at production companies. Some of them already have financing, you know. Those people are already pretty far along. And mine is already at a production company, you know.
Yours is already at a production company, you just said?
Yes.
Okay.
And so
congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so what did it take to get there? Yeah, tell me that.
Well, I'll just say for your friends that the blacklist people have created a website that has a lot of opportunities for people who are trying to get their stuff seen, trying to get it out there. And I think you pay $25 a month or something, or to host a script on there, but then the readers of the blacklist will read it for you, like a bunch of, and then they'll give you feedback, and they will also like tweet out their favorite scripts and stuff like that. And they do a bunch of labs for people there. And so if there were something where I would say it's worth it to engage with that community to check out if it's right for you if you have a script, that would be one place I think is a legitimate place where people really care. They're not trying to just take your money. They're only just paying the readers. You can learn a lot from them. So that's one place I'd recommend. And also the Austin Film Festival has a competition every year that is something that is, it doesn't mean a huge amount, but you can get flown to Austin and you can meet a lot of great people. And I've had friends that have had a lot of success from if their script became a finalist on that.
What's a lot of success? What happened?
Well, you can just, if you don't know anybody, you don't have an agent, you don't have a manager, that is something that matters to agents and managers. It's something that there will be often some sort of mentorship from screenwriters or something like that. I'm not sure if that's specifically with that. I know Sundance also has labs where you will be, you know, mentored or in contact with, you know, people who are already writers in the business or executives. Imagine Impact is another place that is having like 4 times a year now they'll do a sort of competition where you submit your ideas and they will take 20 people and mentor them with a bunch of people and try to sell their stuff with them.
Production?
No, Imagine Impact is, oh god, I'm like totally afraid I'm going to say the wrong name because you're recording me. It's like, it's not Brian Grazer, but it's like, wait, who is the guy who was a kid? Who was Opie on the kid TV show? You know?
I don't know anybody.
Oh my god! Just look up Imagine Impact. It's Imagine Entertainment. Perfect. It's 2 famous people who've produced every movie ever, and so they've been choosing people, who don't have. That's another way in. But I think just writing. Like I met my manager in a coffee shop when he was an assistant. I would say don't. If you meet someone who's an assistant, who really wants to be a manager, who really wants to be an agent, who is willing to read your stuff, like do not discount them. They are, you know, a great resource.
They're moving up.
Yeah, I met my manager when he was. I asked to use his table at the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, and because there was nowhere else to sit. And then he was like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a writer." And he was like, "Oh, I'd love to read a script." And I was like, "Who says that?" And it turned out he was an assistant at Anonymous Content, and he read my scripts, and he had really great. He was like, I love this. I'd love to read more." And then he's like, "I'd love to give you. Would you be open to feedback?" And I was like, "Yes," which I think is another thing. You know, say yes. You know, don't have an ego. We can always grow.
Sure.
And then he was one of the smartest people I'd ever met regarding notes, and we ended up working together, selling a script together while he was still an assistant, and then that sale helped him become a manager because of my sale.
What are your habits to write? How do you have a writer's block?
Have childcare.
You just take the time.
Forcing yourself to sit down and do it, even on the days you don't. Forcing yourself to write. Get the bad version out. rewriting uses a very different part of your brain than writing. So the blank page is terrifying, but if you have something even terrible and you have it on the page, you can go back and your brain will literally be working differently when you reread, when you rewrite. So you just got to get that bad version out on the page, the vomit draft, as they call it.
Oh, I love that. And do you write every day?
I pretty much do, though I think it's great to have days when you just give yourself the time to brainstorm and write, like, I don't know, any sort of like random ideas that come down, or to watch a movie if you know what kind of movie you're writing. I think Save the Cat is a really great simple book on screenwriting. It was helpful, and that sort of helps you categorize what kind of movie you're writing, and then you can watch a ton of movies that sort of are like that movie. Still to this day, I find that really helpful. But I think some sort of writing is great to do every day, just to exercise your brain. I'm writing a video game right now where it's like a choose your own adventure video game. So even if I don't have some big thing I'm writing, at least I'm writing that sort of cheesy dialogue.
What are you most excited about? What are your biggest accomplishments with writing?
I'm very excited about this movie. It's been on a long journey. It's about a girl that joins 16-year-old girl that joins ISIS, but she's really the Trojan horse to telling the story of a everyday Syrian family struggling under the occupation of their city in Syria. And I think there might be the producers have been incredible and really stood by the side, and we've gone on a journey of rewriting it. So I rewrote the first act 6 times before it was ever even good enough to give to anybody. And the most brilliant piece of advice we just got from a director. I mean, literally this script was already on the blacklist, right? So you'd think it was at a certain level or whatever, but we literally just got a note that was like, I think you should probably cut the first act and just start where the second act starts and do all of her backstory and flashbacks. And that was the smartest note. We really realized that was a great idea. So here's these first 30 pages that I struggled to write. I rewrote it 6 times from page 1 rewrite. And now the best note is to cut it. So you have to have a certain amount of just humility to say, yes, that is the best idea. I should just cut all that work. Just no. And that work went into something else that helps you, change something else. But yeah, we really have to be humble about it, because I'm like, oh God. All right, delete. Yes, one of the best things I ever heard was kill your babies. That is like, even the thing you love the most, don't hold on to it just because you love it if it doesn't service the story.
This is really good.
I hope it's helpful to your friends. Yeah. Everyone has a story. It's great to, empower people to tell their story.
And you have an agent, and how did you get a manager? You got the manager that way. You moved up into it. Does he also do acting, or does he only do?
He did actors at a certain point, but now he just does lit and directors mostly. He's sort of an exceptional person in that he was incredibly driven at a very young age, and he was an assistant. And when we made our first sale together, that was when he sort of had the support from his place where he was an assistant to become a manager, which was great. And since then, he's just found incredible clients and continued to curate, the sort of people he wants to represent. And as he's gotten more respect and more power in the industry, that's helped me as well. Because, people want to read me because they know his other clients or they know him. And it's a little tricky because this business is very like who knows who, but not in a negative way always, but just sort of like you have to have someone out there like helping make connections for you, or you don't have to, but it is great to know that if you like your representative and you feel like they're a good person and they're in it for the right reasons and you want that, literally they will be representing you like personally to other people. So if you feel like they're going to do a good job and make friends and be a pleasant, awesome person and are in it for the right reasons, that's a great feeling. Because whenever I sit down to meet someone that they've set a meeting for, they've already had many conversations with my manager and they already like my manager. That's why they're meeting with me. And they've also read my scripts.
He's opening the doors, and he's likable. When you say the right reasons, what do you mean by that?
Well, everyone gets into this business for different reasons, so I guess the right reason is different for everybody. For me, I do think that stories are powerful. I think they can make the world a better place. I think there are certain stories that we should spend our time trying to tell. We should, uplift, and help help people tell stories and try to tell stories about things that aren't as represented in the world. And so he's in it for all those reasons, I would say. Like, he really cares about a good story and an important story. So he's a good partner in that respect. Because sometimes I'll say, hey, I have these 3 ideas. Which one of them should I spend the time on? He's almost like someone that helps you decide what to spend the time on. Yeah, whereas your agent, the agents are just they just have a lot more politics within the actual agency that they are trying to deal with. They are often on many teams of, 4 actors or all these other people. They don't have the same bandwidth or time, so they'll have a lot more clients. And that's why they're a great person for the manager to sort of be in touch with and be like, hey, can you call these people? Or like, well, CAA represents like this big star. Can you get them to read the script? That sort of stuff, because they're connected to all the stars and the directors. So that's why you want to have them, the agents. So you want to have...
The manager's talking to the agents.
I mean, managers also represent big stars too, but quite often they'll just have a smaller group of people that they're working with closely. They have a smaller client list, so yeah. Yeah.
And how long have you been with your manager?
Maybe 7 years.
7 years. How long have you been with your literary agent?
Maybe like 4 years. Yeah, so they jumped on board when I made the sale of the script and not before.
Did you make a lot of money when you made that sale?
It was more than the WJ minimum, because there were 2 people that were bidding on it, so it did end up being more than the WGA. The Writers Guild has minimums that are, how much one has to pay for a hour-long script or that sort of stuff. And luckily, since there were 2 people bidding on it, it was higher than the minimum, so that's good.
What's the minimum?
I think the minimum was 40 or 60,000 for an hour-long script or something.
How did they find it to buy it?
My manager, there's at every studio and production company, there's of course the head person, the main person, and then there's a vice president, and then there's different executives. There's depends how big it is, how many levels of executives, but there's creative executives and there's assistants to those creative executives. And I mean, any level at which you are able to have a connection to have that person read. Like if my manager has a relationship with only the assistant because he's an assistant, well, maybe he can get the assistant to read. Well, that assistant knows a creative executive who's desperately looking for great content, and if they love your script, they have nothing but things to gain from passing on a great script. And that's a really nice thing. That's one thing I like about it more than acting, is like if you write something great, everyone benefits who actually sends it up the chain, because having great taste or believing in something good or helping someone find something good is a great asset. Everyone wants stories. So, or if your manager is, more powerful, they might know the creative executive and they can get the creative executive to read. You go in and pitch to the creative executive. If the creative executive likes it, they might send it up to the vice president. They might set up another pitch. You pitch and pitch to the top,
Is that how it happened for you?
Yeah. Actually, one interesting thing that happened was I had written a story about my family, a half-hour comedy about my family. I think that's always a great place to start, is something that's really, really personally you, because everyone will be reading this sample, and it's just something that's completely you will be a great representation of what kind of voice you would bring to another movie or to a writer's room. So if you can start with a very personal story, that's always great. And so
It's like you have a portfolio.
yeah, you do. But all your scripts are your samples, and that's why you just got to keep writing and writing. But I was working for a famous actress just as an assistant, and then she loved the script and she offered to be in a reading of it. My manager had the idea to do a reading of the script, and when she agreed to do it, then my friend was a casting director, and he said, I'll try to get other actors, famous actors, in it. And so we just put on a show. We rented a room in like a black box theater, and all these famous actors showed up because this one actress had agreed to do it. And so, but it was on a holiday weekend. That's the only weekend she could do it. And so then my manager, who I think was an assistant, still an assistant at that time, cold called like everyone in Hollywood to try to get them to come to this meeting to this reading. And because there were these famous actors, people actually listened, and almost no one could go. But because there was this roster of people doing the reading, they said, well, I'll read the script. I would love to read the script. I can't go. I'm gone for that holiday weekend, but I love to read the script. So it was a great publicity stunt because all these people read the script by someone they'd never heard of, from an assistant they'd never heard of, because he had the guts to call. And then a few people were at the reading. And so what happened was I ended up with a lot of general meetings, which I would not have had otherwise. And one of them was with the Weinstein Company. And the Weinstein Company, RIP, but they had a wonderful head of television. And she liked the script a lot, but it was not something they wanted to buy, and she just was asking me what other things I had written, and I mentioned this one drama, and she was like, I really want to read that, and so she read it, and that was what created the bidding war between them and someone else. And so it was all because of that reading, now that I think about it, that people read my other stuff as well. So sometimes you got to create a little buzz about yourself however you can.
So what advice would you give like people like that are not even located maybe in LA, there might be in like Maine or Chicago?
Right. Well, Chicago, there's a lot of like opportunity to get your stuff seen. Another thing my friends and I did was I just wrote a bunch of short plays for all my actor friends, and we put on a show, and everyone invited anyone they knew in the industry, and someone saw it who was working at a production company and saw my play and was like, oh, I really think that you should be writing sitcoms or something. And I was like, I actually really want to write dark dramas. And I was like, what do you do? And she's like, well, I sell sitcoms for Sony. And I was like, oh, let me get that Modern Family spec to you. And I taught myself how to write a Modern Family spec. That was the first thing I wrote, was because I said, well, I have this opportunity in front of me. I better try to take it because I do want to be a writer. So I will try to do this.
Wow.
So as you can tell, a lot of my stories are very LA based. Like I ran into someone at a coffee shop, someone saw my play, all this stuff, trying to create in a space where people are going to see you. So it is kind of tricky if you aren't in LA. I would say that like being here and creating, being here and not creating and not getting your stuff out there and not having samples is not worth it. So if it's easier to be somewhere and create those samples, then, that's worth it. I think if you're far away from any sort of a industry people, then just creating samples, trying to educate yourself, reading as much as possible, making your samples as good as possible, and then really trying to figure out what would be the best things to submit to, like the Blacklist, like Austin Film Festival or Sundance. Those are some places that you have to look into.
All those places.
Yeah, and a lot of that might be, well, you need to fly out for 6 weeks to do this workshop, because it's always going to be, well, we're introducing you to all these people through this workshop.
And it's not bullshit. It's like really.
Yes. I mean, like,
legit.
It'll be all like, if you get that opportunity, it's because they really loved your script and they want to help you by introducing you to people in the industry who can give you who can be a connection for you and give you help and stuff like that.
It's wonderful that those things exist like that,
Yeah.
It's just really wonderful.
There's, and especially diverse stories right now and stories that people don't hear. So if you're not in LA, I don't see that as a negative at all, because you probably have especially a perspective that the people just writing in LA may not have. So to look around you and tell a story that you think, hasn't been heard before.
What about writing contests? Somebody said do writing contests because agents look at the results of the winners.
I don't know much about it other than the ones I've named. I don't know. I think that sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And I don't know which ones are good, but some of them aren't. Oh, there's some great podcasts. The Nerdist Writers Panel is amazing for television. John August, I believe, has a podcast, Script Notes, maybe it's called, about writing for film. I like the Nerdist Writers Panel because a lot of people do tell their stories about how they got started. Every single one is different, but sometimes they'll talk about different things that are useful. And Dead Pilot Society is really funny. That's pilots that were actually developed at the different networks and then not ever filmed. And they're performed by famous actors. And it's really nice to hear what a script is like that didn't get there, that sold but didn't get made. And it's interesting.